Hey guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. It's good to be with you on today is Wednesday, Thursday? Today's Wednesday?
Thursday.
It's Thursday.
On a Thursday.
Come on, guys, it's Thursday.
This is what happens when you have a 13-month-old and you're working on a couple hours of sleep a night. My name is Jerry Miller. It's great to be with you. We have a fabulous, fabulous program lined up. His fourth rodeo, fourth time in the saddle, Dave Norris will join us momentarily. I think an institution, of course, in Charlottesville. Dede Smith, her first time on the show, and she's going to crush it as well. She's kind enough to come on the platform and on set here at I Love CVille in the Macklin building. I love connecting with you guys through this platform. I love spotlighting the best of Charlottesville, Virginia. The entire mission of this program is to celebrate and champion Charlottesville and Central Virginia across the board. We saw firsthand August 12th right outside the Macklin building here, and it kind of left a 90 to 120 day kind of PTSD funk for me. Got out of that funk, and this show was the birth of that funk because we wanted to do our small part, our very small part of helping to get Charlottesville headed in the right direction. I'll leave it at that right there. Before we welcome Dave Norris and Dede Smith to the show, I'd like to thank some of the sponsors that make this program possible. First, our very good friends at Intrastate Pest and Service Companies. Since 1969, Intrastate Pest and Service Companies have been your mold remediation, home repair, and pest control specialists. It started in 1969 with one truck and Mr. Wells. Mr. Wells literally would go to the first home, his first client of the day, and then he would leave that home after servicing it successfully and go to a phone booth where he would call the second homeowner from a phone booth in Charlottesville and say, may I come there now? Today, Intrastate is 4 generations strong. The headquarters right around the corners from Bodo's Bagels, an office in the Shenandoah Valley, an office in Richmond, Virginia, a Commonwealth-wide footprint, and our advertising agency, V&V Brands, is a proud, proud partner of this company. We also want to give some big-time props and love to the good doctor. His name is Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. Who's got your back? Dr. Wagner's got your back, whether it's chiropractic care, sports medicine, or physical therapy. He is changing people's lives positively in Charlottesville and Central Virginia, and we champion and celebrate and really endorse both businesses, guys, here at I Love CVille. So I have the easy job. All I have to do is sit on this chair in front of this microphone, in front of that camera, and be myself. Harris Tolber and Judah Wickower and Laura Linsky and my son Trey, who is working the board as a 13-month-old. They have the difficult jobs. And Harris made a really good point today, and he said, Jerry, let's emphasize the fact that the show is every day. Guys, it's Monday through Friday from 12:30 to 1:30 on the I Love CVille network. I think on that note, I need to stop talking, Harris, and I think we need to go to the studio cam, which is right over there. And on that note, we welcome the fabulous Dede Smith.
Thank you.
Look fantastic. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
So honored to be on with my favorite person, too, Dave Norris.
Dave Norris, you get that all the time, I see.
Yeah,
No,
all the time.
The thing is, I'm not just saying this because Dede is here, but I had the pleasure of serving on council with some just truly amazing people, but Dede was certainly, maybe other than Holly Edwards, but Dede was just one of my all-time favorites, and it's.
Well, you talked to me into it.
Yeah,
this is true.
No regrets about that?
Your fault.
It's all my fault.
Let those people who didn't appreciate what I did blame him.
Well, there were many people pushing you to run, Dede, and I'm so glad you agreed to do it.
I'm excited, guys. Benjamin Duva says hello, Dede. Kimberly Serrano says hello. Dede's page is blowing up right now. If you could like and share the stream wherever you're watching. I'm going to get out of the way, and I'm going to start with an open-ended question. Before we talk politics, current events, city council, all that stuff, I want to put you in perspective. Who is Dede Smith, her passions, her hobbies, her interests, what she loves about Charlottesville, Virginia?
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you. I've been here for 40 years now. I think this is like a round number for me this year. And I love Charlottesville. I always have. I'm married to a UVA professor, and we have had several wonderful opportunities to move, to get, in other university towns, and always we were pulled to stay here. And I think that speaks a lot for Charlottesville. I mean, I'm talking Austin, Seattle. I mean, it was hard. Right? It was a little hard. Yeah. But Charlottesville is just the right size, and quite frankly, the beauty of it is so stunning. So my passions, you'll hear later, I would consider education one of my passions, sometimes more so than people would like. But from a kind of fun point of view, I'm a naturalist, which doesn't mean... Not everybody knows what a naturalist is.
I don't know what a naturalist is. I really don't.
We've gotten some pushback on this word. Natural history, trees. I love trees and just everything about the outdoors. I was the director of the Ivy Creek Foundation for 14 years. That's the Ivy Creek Natural Area. I managed that, helped create the Ragged Mountain Natural Area, and I'm very proud. We also did a lot of research, and Ivy Creek Natural Area is now, because of the research, an African American heritage site. It actually has an absolutely fantastic story, and a story we can tell because Ivy Creek Natural Area, and many amazing people before Dave and myself worked to preserve this African American farm as a park back in 1970s, back in the 1970s. And so the reason we can tell this story is because of preservation. So preservation is another thing that I'm sort of known to champion. Being here 40 years, there's like a lot of things I'm kind of known to champion. So that's a big passion of mine. I helped to start the Ravenna Master Naturalists chapter of the Virginia Master Naturalists. Very proud of that as well. And then have gotten very involved with water. Also a bit notorious for that. Big water. This is probably before your time, Jerry.
Keep it coming. You're crushing it right now. This is a sizzle reel waiting to happen right here, Dave Norris.
This is back in the Hook days.
Okay, I love the Hook.
I love the Hook.
Yeah, I miss Hall Spencer
and
the Hook and Courtney.
Oh my
and
gosh!
Lisa and Dave.
It was such a good team, and they were real investigative reporters. And so we had this big battle. This again, Dave was a big ally. He was on city council at the time, to kind of really again champion water and conservation and we won't get into that too heavily. But all of those things that sort of the naturalist side and the African American history side have really come together for me in my sort of post Ivy Creek and even post city council life, which I'm very involved with local African American history.
I love it.
Yeah.
Busy.
Yeah, I'm on the board of the African American Heritage Center. I'm also uber involved, as I want to do, with the Barrett Early Learning Center.
I know that.
Yeah, and so it almost closed about 5-6 years ago, and it's just such an institution in this community for a lot of reasons that have to do with a lot of the issues that Dave champions, with African American heritage, with a lot of our history of institutional racism, segregation. It began in 1935. Under heavy segregation. In WPA, it was an African American child care for the WPA program. I mean, that's like ancient history. Was in the Vinegar Hill area. But anyway, long story short, it's come back big time. We're able to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars to renovate it. It's in a 100-year-old home,
right?
Which is really its beauty.
Sure,
it's in a home. It's a home. You should consider it for Trey.
Yeah, we should. If I can just get Trey away from Mama Bear. I mean, it's the first one. We're working on that, sweetheart. She's watching right now. I'm going to start right now. I'm going to put my foot in my mouth here.
Come visit. Yeah. He couldn't go till he was 2 anyway.
Okay. He's 13 months old, so we have 11 months to figure that out, sweetheart. We will. Let's turn that into a sizzle reel for Dede Smith. The whole thing. I thought that was fantastic. Ted Norris of Maya Restaurant is watching right now.
That's my cousin.
Really?
Really?
I love Ted. He's got great hair.
He's got the best hair.
Yeah, Ted, give me some props right now. Laura Jackson is watching. She was on the show yesterday. All right, you jump in here. You give us a little Dede Smith.
I got nothing on that. That's an impossible act to follow. Yeah. No, I mean, what do you want me to say?
You know what? How about this? And one more kind of like behind the scenes tidbit or a behind the scenes firsthand story of when you guys were on council together. Maybe something that folks don't know, some kind of like fly in the wall type story that we would love.
Well, we had this tradition going back to Holly's days, and then Dede continued it for not every single council meeting, but we would always, often after the council meeting was over, a few of us would head over to Rapture and just sort of decompress, and it became kind of a ritual. And
I miss that.
I miss those days. So
were the council meetings going to 1 and 2 in the morning?
Often, not always, but
no, and we obviously we couldn't at that point. But if they could end between 10 and 11, because Rapture was, I mean, it was a Monday night,
right?
You know, not all restaurants are open.
Right, of course not. Rapture is.
And we loved Rapture.
Was Al Zappa the barkeep then?
He was often there. But
Al's a good guy.
But yeah, when Holly was on council, she always had a ginger ale, and then Peter Kleeman would come, local citizen activist, and he always had a Guinness, and I would have some kind of wheat beer, and
I always had an IPA.
Dede always had an IPA, and it was just a fun little tradition. But anyhow, I had a great time serving on council with Dede. It was not long enough. I think we only overlapped for 2 years.
For 2 years, yeah.
But it was a good 2 years.
There doesn't seem to be, and I'm not, this is not any kind of like aha or gotcha or anything like that. There doesn't seem to be the same amount of like solidarity or kinship or fellowship on today's council. Thoughts? I mean, why is that? Is that just the nature of the ubiquitous nature of social media and smartphones and the 24-hour, 365 news cycle? I mean, what do you think about that?
No, it's just personality.
You think it's personality? I like this. Cut to the chase. Is that what you think?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to speak quite as much for current council as I was on just the sort of previous one. Or maybe 2 back. But it's the sort of nature of politics is sometimes such that you don't have that. You would think you would, but I think what was fascinating in comparing our council, and particularly Dave and I, Dave having talked me into going on council, we didn't always agree on things.
No.
In fact, there were a lot of things we didn't agree on, but we always got along, and we would always talk. And that was where the real difference lay, I thought, was who's really willing to sit down and talk through these. And not everybody was.
What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's you got to be willing to put differences aside and just sit down. And I mean, we're all in this ideally, we're all in this to improve our community, right? People who run for office want to leave a legacy of having done good things for the community. And so I always said when I was on council, I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican or Libertarian, whatever your partisan affiliation, if you have a good idea for Charlottesville, I want to hear it, And so, I've said this on the show before, like when you're in local office, we're all neighbors, we all shop in the same grocery stores, we all, send our kids to the schools. So we can't really afford to demonize each other so much, and nor should we. I mean, we should be able to sit down, even when we disagree on things, and find ways that we can work together to make it a better community.
Rachel Savage, thank you for watching. Eva Wolf, thank you for watching kindly here on the I Love CVille Show. Lily MC, Myra Reynolds, Kelly Hab Campbell, Rebecca Downey, Chris Turner, Steve Ryan, Jonathan Galasso, Rich, across the Commonwealth watching right now. Like and share the stream if you could do us that favor. 3 spots open, Dede, for City Council.
Yeah. Wow.
We're going to have massive turnover. We have a very competitive Democratic primary on the horizon, with June 11th having some closure there. And we have some independents that are making some noise, I think notably Bellamy Brown. We just had one independent drop out of the race, which I'm sure we will talk about as well. I'm going to start open-ended with you. Your thoughts on 3 spots up for grabs, your thoughts on the 2019 race in totality.
Well, I think we've got some interesting candidates. Just in terms of support, I think we really know who's going to be left. So we have Heather Hill and Nakia Walker will still be there. We know that. That's a little bit of an unusual situation to have not only 3, it's common to have 3 seats open, but no incumbents. Right. I mean, that's almost unheard of. Right. So there's sort of a lot of choice, but I think one really should think about what the team is. Just as we were just talking, it would be nice to have team. That doesn't mean everybody agrees. I do not think it's good if everybody agrees on everything, because then you really can go down the wrong path really quickly. But I'm very excited about Michael Payne, and I've got his sign I've got Sina McGill's sign.
Okay. I was going to ask you that. In your front yard?
In my front yard.
She's wearing the Sally Hudson for
I have
Delegate
two
button.
for Sally.
Okay.
I have 2 signs for Sally.
Okay.
I'm a big Sally
She's
supporter.
sharp.
Oh, wow. And I was early on a big Sally supporter, but
Well, you were
even
one of the
before.
ones that kind of talked her into running.
Yeah? Is that true?
Well, I don't know if no, I wouldn't say that. I supported her very early. I got her involved with in Charlottesville. I like to think I had a part in really orienting her to the politics. I mean, she did need to be taught. She's so strong.
Yeah.
I just say
on the
early
show.
on. Yeah, I know. I watched it.
Yeah, she was. I was so impressed.
Yeah, she kills it every time
Yeah.
because she's incredibly
Prepared.
smart. And she's prepared, she's smart, she's well-read in terms of issues. If she doesn't know something, she comes up to speed really quickly. She's just a straight thinker. And I've rarely met somebody that has come up to speed so quickly in this community. It's like she's done more in this community in 3 years than most people do in 30. So I think the one criticism is she hasn't been here that long.
Well, and also perhaps, and I don't think it's a criticism. I think it's a fair point. Never held an elected position before.
Yeah, but that's not uncommon anymore.
That's true. That's true. That's
I
certainly
think
true.
more goes to name recognition.
Yeah.
So,
Right. But she's done a lot of political things.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I think that's fair enough. Not having held a position, but I just really am looking forward to seeing her in that seat.
You know what? I'm curious to see how it plays out. She's going toe-to-toe with Kathy Galvin. Then June 11th primary will determine that. We'll talk about that. I need to get your perspective on, let's see, campaign financing came out.
Financing,
We saw the stories in the Daily Progress. Lloyd Snook has, to say it's a sizable lead is an utter understatement. I mean, he's got over $28,000 in the war chest. Everybody after that, we're talking, what? Pinkston was second.
Under 10.
Yeah, 10.
10,000.
Under 10.
Yeah.
I mean, open-ended question. Your thoughts on the sizable lead, how we got the sizable lead, and what it actually means.
Well, I'm not at all surprised. First of all, I mean, Lloyd's got he's been in town for many years. Got great name recognition. Very well connected. He's been involved in Democratic circles for decades.
Probably knows richer people. Yeah.
Right. So that's no surprise, really. I think Lloyd's real problem at this point is just not getting too complacent, because we saw this happen during the last election when the person who many people, including myself, thought of as the logical front runner in that race, Amy Laufer, ended up not winning a seat. And so you can never be too complacent. So even though Lloyd is way out ahead in terms of fundraising and name recognition, he's got to keep working hard, and I'm sure he will. I mean, he knows this game. So, but yeah, the others are all kind of crowded around well, I should say all the others. 3 of the others are all kind of crowded around each other in terms of fundraising. They're all working hard to get their name out there, get their signs out there, to get up to speed on all the issues. And then our mutual friend, Bob Fenwick, didn't raise a lot of money, but Bob's never been about raising a lot of money.
He never has.
He works hard, and he's very present, and he's very engaged. So he's trying a different strategy, and we'll see if it pays off.
Do you think, how can the money be used? I mean, I was looking at Nolan Stout's story in the Daily Progress. Every single person in this race, I think except for Bellamy Brown, is buying yard signs out of the wazoo here. I didn't realize yard signs were such a priority here. I mean, how do you use $28,000? And he's going to get more.
There's ways to use it.
Yeah.
Radio,
TV.
Radio, TV, mailers.
Mailers are one of the biggest
Although,
costs.
as your guest said yesterday, money isn't always the determinant of who wins elections. Jonathan Stevens, who was here yesterday, well outraised his opponent for Commissioner of Revenue race and didn't win. So money doesn't necessarily determine the outcome, but it helps. And so, getting those ads out there, hiring staff if you want to hire staff, the yard signs. Although, as Tom Vandiver is fond of saying, yard signs don't vote. So don't assume if you see a lot of yard signs that person is.
But a yard sign can get you in trouble if you don't have the right language on the back of the yard sign.
Which changed since our time.
Has it?
Yeah, it was 2015. I read that recently, and
how did it change?
That you didn't have to put a disclaimer on it.
Oh, okay.
Because it was a yard sign. It was like
It seems like
obvious.
minutia.
It is.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
trivial. It's one of those things that's kind of a gotcha thing. That
Right.
Yeah.
It's in the grand scheme of things, it really shouldn't mean anything. But so yeah, I mean, it's gonna. I think Lloyd will have quite the war chest to work with. He's going to raise more, and he'll have some ads out and some mailers out.
Yeah.
He'll do all that stuff.
He's right down the hall.
Yeah.
Sally Hudson's on the second floor, both their headquarters in this building. Your thoughts on this? And I'm going to ask you a tough question. If you were a betting woman and if you had a crystal ball in front of you, how do you see those 3 seats playing out?
The 3, just for the Democratic primary.
Well, I'm going to say overall, the finish
overall.
line and the finish line.
I do think it's a little premature because I think Bellamy Brown will be a fascinating candidate.
I agree.
I don't know enough about him to really say how strong, but he looks like he's coming on strong. So I think he'll be formidable. I think we certainly can count on 2 Democrats at least, and I think Lloyd will walk on pretty easily. I don't think he'll become complacent, and he does have an enormous.
So you think Lloyd,
and
potentially Bellamy?
Yeah, potentially Bellamy. I think Michael Payne is, and then I would. I'm not sure who the other one was. Cena's, the only woman. Okay. And that will be, and then she's great, She doesn't come off quite as knowledgeable, and I think she would. Say the same thing as some of the others, particularly in a forum. I mean, Michael and Lloyd really.
Well, I mean, Lloyd does
shine.
this professionally.
Yeah, right.
Talks and
right.
argues and is persuasive in front of people.
That's true.
Exactly.
How do you think it's going to play out? I'm going to throw the Standardsville odds makers betting lines out there. The Standardsville odds makers betting lines are Lloyd Snook 2-1.
Okay.
I'm going to do a Bellamy Brown 3.5 to 1.
Okay.
Michael Payne, who I know you know well, a 4.5 to 1. A Pinkston, a 5.5 to 1. And then I'm going to put the field at 10+ to 1.
Okay. And Pinkston's another one I don't actually know.
I spent
other
an
than
hour
him.
with Pinkston.
Yeah.
I think he's essentially a libertarian.
Okay.
I mean, everybody's got to run. I mean, Mayor Walker didn't. Bellamy Brown's not doing it. But it seems like you got to run as a Democrat to stand a chance in this town.
That was always true.
Right.
That was always true. And I really do hope that Nikiah Walker has broken that spell.
Yeah.
I would like to see it nonpartisan, personally.
Well, time will tell with Bellamy. Your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
I think as we've discussed before, I think Bellamy has an outside chance. He's got a great bio. He hasn't started raising money yet. He hasn't really started putting a whole lot of infrastructure, but he has time.
Right.
He's not running in the primary,
Right.
so he has time to pull it all together. But he's got a great story. He's got a great head on his shoulders. I think he's got a real shot at one of those seats.
Any dark horses for you?
That's my dark horse right there.
Anyone that you think is going to surprise some folks on the Democratic side?
Well, I don't know who I do think it'll be Michael Payne and Lloyd. That's my best guess at this point. But Brian Pinkston seems to be getting a lot of sort of
momentum,
what you call establishment Democratic support. And Cena is out there working hard. She's, I think she's doing this pretty much full time at this point. So I think it's between the two of them. And if I were a Standardsville betting man, I don't know. I'd probably put it on Cena, but it's going to be close.
I think I would too. I would too.
What's the difference between Cena and Pinkston in your eyes? Because it sounds like you got Snook and Payne.
Because then otherwise you have 3 white men. Quite sorry, guys.
No.
I don't think that's irrelevant. And
I agree.
I don't how much it's relevant in Charlottesville. In a different venue, it might not be. I mean, Charlottesville is a very conservative place, believe it or not. Always has been. I've been here 40 years. Let me tell you, it's a very conservative place. But in this day and age, to put 3 white men in, I don't know.
Yeah.
Will Charlottesville do that?
Well, I mean, if that happens, and if 3 white men win a spot on council, then you have 4 white people and 1 African American representing the city of Charlottesville.
But that's typical.
Yeah.
It actually, when Wes and Nikiah were, on at the same time, that
Never
had that
happened
ever
before.
happened
Never.
before?
No.
And was revolutionary.
Yeah.
But that's not even an issue anymore since, Bellamy Brown is of color. But
Yeah.
so yeah, so the November race will throw in another important factor. And it's not unimportant.
Oh, I think it's extremely important.
Unimportant, yeah.
Extremely important,
Yeah.
and something that should be emphasized, and why we're talking about it now. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think representation is important, and you need to have people who. We are a diverse community, and you don't want people on council who all come from the same background, same demographic, and so I hope we do mix it up a little bit.
Should something be done about it to have more diverse playing fields? Because I'm looking at the Democratic primary, and I see a bunch of white dudes, right? And I see a white female. Okay. Should something be done? I mean, you can make the argument the lack of pay.
I'm not sure what could. Oh, that kind of.
The lack
can
of
be
pay
done.
is impacting diversification potentially. Your
I
thoughts?
I think that's part of it, but we all have to do a better job of sort of building the bench, and we haven't done a very good job of that. And reaching out, just like Holly did when she reached out to Nikaya several years ago now and said, I want you to think about this. And Nikaya's like, no way. I would never do that. But, Holly just worked on her over, and Holly Edwards just worked on her and finally convinced, just planted a seed with her, I should say. And then after Holly passed, then Nikaya said, okay, I need to do this, Right. So, but we have to do that work. We have to reach out and nurture the next generation of leaders and support them and get them on boards and commissions and get them involved in nonprofits and get them involved in the community, and then hopefully they'll take that leap into public office.
Do you think that, we touched on this a little bit, were you surprised that Dr. West Bellamy is not running again? Is this a strategic move potentially for long-term play at a political career? I'm hearing potentially a move to Richmond in the horizon. For Dr. Bellamy and his family.
Oh,
that's the scuttlebutt I'm hearing. Close to where he is working.
He works in Petersburg,
right? Closer to his professorship. And Richmond is a playing field that I think potentially is. I'm going to straight up say it. Richmond is a very different playing field than the city of Charlottesville when it comes to politics, and that's safe to say.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on this topic in general, Dede?
Well, I think Dave really touched on something that I feel strongly, and that's the next generation. I think it's time, and I am the baby boomer generation that might be obvious, like Lloyd Snooks, quite frankly, his generation, David Toscano's generation, and that was when I was supporting Sally Hudson over David Toscano. That was really why I said it is time for us to step aside. The whole world has just changed so much in the last few years with everything from Me Too to locally August 12th. I mean, it's just a different world. And it is time and we're seeing this next generation really come forward. And I think it's great. So that is, I don't know if that's probably not answering your question, but I do believe that we need to support particularly these really promising new leaders in your generation.
I think our generation is galvanized and leveraging digital, social, and mobile to essentially bring the troops together. And that is creating momentum, which we're now seeing on Twitter, which our friend Dave Norris is now a part.
So start following. Tweeter. Follow Dave. Follow Dave.
I haven't actually tweeted yet. I haven't figured out how to tweet. But
I was so proud. I think one of my most exciting moments was when I got a follow from Dave Norris. I was like, yes, my boy is following me on Twitter. Right. Let me throw this to you here. Let's talk about what is going through the minds of counselors now. We still have time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the game plan? What is the everyday for someone that wants to win a spot on city council?
Yeah. Oh, for somebody who wants to win a spot.
Win a spot.
Yeah.
Not just a Democratic primary.
Yeah. No, it's all about visibility, name recognition, getting out there, getting up to speed on the issues, meeting voters, being present. And that means going to forum. There seems like there's a forum a night nowadays. Candidate forums, special events, meet and greets. Going to festivals and community events. I mean, you just got to get out there. It's hard work. What I always tell candidates, though, is that the good news is that running for office is actually harder work than being in office. So really, once you're in office, it's not like you can sit back and just relax because that's. But it's not 24/7 nonstop the way campaigning can feel. So it's hard work, but there's a finish line on June 11th for at least 5 of them, and then they'll sprint from there to November, the ones who make it past the finish line.
What's the difference between getting to June 11th and then from June 11th to November? How does the strategy change?
Well, this year it'll be a little different than it has been because you have an independent who could actually win a seat, just like there was.
He's watching right now. Say Bellamy Brown.
Bellamy Brown.
Hello, Bellamy.
Hello,
Bellamy
we
Brown.
look forward to hearing more from you.
I'm a big fan of you, Bellamy Brown.
That's right. I love my Bellamy Brown.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean they're not going to be able to just slide and kind of rest on their laurels, unlike when some of us were running, yeah. So there's going to be a race, and they're going to have to keep pushing.
Would you change? You have time on council, vice mayor. How would you change it? I mean, the pay, strong mayor. Would you make the mayor elected position? What would you do?
Wards.
Explain that to me. I love the ward idea.
Yeah, I think we really need to get more geographic representation. And
You're a fan of this too, aren't you?
No, Dave isn't. See, I told you, there's a lot of things we don't. I like the ward idea too.
Don was a fan of this here. Talk to me about this.
He did say something about wards. Yeah.
We live in basically a segregated city. 10 square miles that is heavily segregated, both economically and racially. Not quite, I mean, we're moving a little bit away, but not very much. And we find that those who can run for office because they're economically comfortable or they have time on their hands.
Retired.
Like me. I'm a perfect example. Except I don't come from what we call the north side of town, which is a railroad track thing, by the way. And
where do you live in town? Can I ask?
In Fry's Spring.
Oh, it's a great spot.
Yeah.
I live in Redfield, right around the corner.
Oh, yeah, right. We're neighbors.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, except you're in the county and I'm in the city.
I'm in the county. Yeah, that's right.
And don't ask us to open up that Sunset Avenue.
Just
don't do that.
You'll have a riot on your hands there.
Sunset all the time, and then I have to get off my bike and go across that stupid little bridge, and then get back on my bike to ride here. Why don't they open up Sunset Avenue? It's a topic for another day. I'm very passionate about this here.
I've lived in Fry's Spring for 35 years, 35 of my 40 years.
That's awesome.
So I know it very well, and I do love it. But that said, again, the ward system, I think it would enable people who might not otherwise either have the resources to do it, to run, but also would feel intimidated. There's a lot. We take for granted so much of our this sort of top-tier cultural homogeneity, and we think everybody feels comfortable, here, when there's a whole lot of people who don't feel comfortable in Charlottesville's sort of power elite, if you will.
I think you're talking about white privilege right there.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Yeah. Sometimes it's not only white, but mostly is. Yeah.
I think that's a sizzle reel right there. I want to hear why you don't like the ward idea. And then I want to, I love the ward idea.
Yeah, I think we're too small of a city. I mean, I think we're 10 square miles, and you should be able to represent 10 square miles. And I want every single city councilor to be thinking about, that single mom in West Haven who's trying to do the best by her kids and working 3 jobs, and not just the one councilor who happens to represent West Haven. I want every councilor to be focused on the needs of the community writ large. However, I do, and there's other reasons more logistical in nature why I'm not a huge fan of wards, but I do agree with the ultimate goal of this discussion about wards, which is we need a more diverse representation on council. I think right now we have a pretty good representation with an at-large system. As we said earlier, we've never had 2 African Americans on council before. That was from an at-large system. But looking at issues of pay is important, and I think more support for counselors so that they can get out there and be engaged in the community. I think there's some things we can do short of wards. I'm a big fan of, in terms of like structural change. We've talked about having more of a strong mayor form of government. I think the chief executive of the city should be directly accountable to the voters, which is not the case now. So, I think there are some changes we can make. And I've told people, if getting some reforms The only way we can get some of these reforms is to throw in a ward system. I'll probably go on board, get on board with a ward system, but alone, I really don't think it's going to do much. And if anything, it actually might make it harder for people of limited means to serve on council.
How's that?
Because when I was on city council, I was a renter for much of that time, right? I grew up in an Army family. I worked in nonprofits. I don't have a lot of money. So, so as a renter, you know, it's hard to find affordable rental housing in Charlottesville, right? And so if you tell a renter, you've got to stay in this one tiny little quadrant of Charlottesville in order to stay on council, that's really tough. It's a very transient community. And so I had a hard enough time finding affordable rental housing just in the 10 square miles, forget about one tiny quadrant. So it basically says you have to be an established homeowner in order to serve on council. I think we could probably figure that out.
Yeah. I think there should be more counselors too.
Oh, interesting.
I think 5 is too few.
Why?
Because again, sort of for the same reason, you're just going, you concentrate, when in a system that already concentrates power, you have many fewer options to diversify that power. I mean, this is 7 members on the school board and 5 members on the city council. You know, and school board's another reason when it went from an appointed to an elected system back in 2006 or whatever it was. They couldn't do wards because the city council didn't have wards, and they should have done wards.
And they used to be selected by wards, right? The city,
oh, did they?
The school board, I think.
Not in my time, but that could be.
I thought it was back in the day you had to be from different, I could be wrong.
There was certainly, when it was appointed, there was pressure to do that. And it played out such that it was way more geographically and, you know, diverse back when it was appointed. But you know, school board, who wants to, you know, you're asking school board members to run an election. But, so if it was from wards, I think it would, again, encourage more participation. But, that said, you know, my time on city council, I totally thought that the lack of geographic representation, north side, south side, played out, particularly with development.
Talk to me about that.
So, look at Cherry and Ridge. And you were not on council at that time, were you, on Cherry and Ridge?
Part of it, yeah. You mean when they were looking at the
Fairfield.
before the hotel?
Yeah, but the vote for the motel, and maybe you were, but
I was not there for that one.
Yeah, okay, right. And just a lot of development right there in that Ridge Street area. I mean, there was a real sense, well, sure, you can put it there, but don't put it on Park Street. Almost recently, they turned down this assisted living, you know, that had some affordability thing because, you know, they lived there, you know, they didn't want it there. So, I mean, I don't know. But I also think that increased pay would definitely help.
I think that would make a huge impact.
Yeah.
18 and 20,000, 20K for the mayor, 18 for city councilors, really limits who can potentially hold these seats, especially since, I mean, we've had every councilor except Dr. Bellamy. And Dr. Bellamy, the invitation is open on this set, and they have all said that it's a full-time 40 to 50-hour-a-week job. How do you work 50 hours a week, 18K?
Yeah, no, it's.
I mean,
you have to be, as Dede said, either
retired,
wealthy, retired.
Right.
You have a spouse that supports you. You know, but if you don't have one of those things, it's tough.
Why do we think? I'm gonna throw this to you. Why do we think there's potentially no incumbents going to be on council? 3 incumbents are choosing not to run again. Is this a direct impact or influence of August 12th?
I would assume so. I mean, it's been a really tough couple of years, and some of that was self-inflicted, but it's been a tough few years for city council, and I can understand why none of the incumbents would want to go through more of that, you know, and so they have other things they want to do with their lives. They have families. Obviously, one of them is looking for higher office.
Right.
But,
Kathy Galvin, we can talk about that.
But, yeah, it's been a rough time, and so I'm not totally surprised that none of them want to do that again. So.
What do you think, Dede?
I agree.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, whether or not it's absolutely from here to there because of August 12th, but I do think the pressure and, you know, and just the ongoing dialogue. We love to dialogue. We were talking off camera about how, you know, nothing ever gets done because we love to talk about things, but it's just wearing. It's wearing. It's emotionally wearing, and time-wise, it's It is a lot. I'm not sure that city council needs to be a full-time job. I'm not sure we
Lloyd
created.
says that. Lloyd says that.
I mean, yeah, I think the mayor, you sort of, I mean, everybody wants the mayor at every community event and every whatever. So, but the other city councilors.
But they wanted you, Dave.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm sure every mayor, but the city councilors, yes, in theory, that should be a part-time job, and yeah, and I think they're doing a better job now of building in some support in City Hall in terms of staffing, so that they don't feel like they have to be all things to all people, and so hopefully that.
What do you think of Galvin's pursuit of Toscano's open seat?
Well,
Kathy Galvin's going after Dave Toscano's seat. Dave Toscano was right here.
Yeah,
he insisted
right.
that we leave his swag here.
Yeah.
He's going toe-to-toe with Sally Hudson. She's wearing the Sally Hudson button right now.
Sally Hudson button. You know, Sally Hudson has outraised Kathy in both quarters. She's got 5 times as much money on hand. Again, money is not the determinant. She's working hard.
That's because Sonia Smith's made some sizable donations.
Right, but even apart from, like, even in this last quarter, more money came in for Sally than for Kathy. So it's gonna, you know. Kathy, however, has that name recognition, and she's been on the ballots. You know, people have checked off that box next to her name, and so that's tough to overcome sometimes when you got somebody with name recognition. Now, a lot of people are still upset with. There's an anti-incumbent mood in the city, which is one of the reasons why none of the incumbents are running again for city council, and a lot of people are still upset about the way August 12th was handled, and. Because the argument there is you either were part of the decision making and it was bungled and you should should be held accountable for that.
Or you weren't and it got bungled and you should have been.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
which is not necessarily fair.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that was quite possibly there was a series of decisions there that were quite possibly the most consequential decisions of their time on council, and it didn't turn out very well. And we still don't have all the answers as to why. But so I don't know if that's going to affect her candidacy or not. She's very smart. She does her homework. She has high name recognition, and that will go a long way.
How would you see? Go ahead.
I was going to say, but she's also extremely conservative.
Yeah.
And again, she's in this older generation. So another big change that we've seen for those of us who have run for office, you get all the voter history, and it's really impressive that we kept saying, you millennials, you have to start voting. I mean, it's just old people, basically.
I think millennials are starting to vote now.
They are starting to vote now, and I think that's a big change.
Yeah.
Again, just bringing in the new generation. Let's vote for our own generation, which they should be doing, in my humble opinion. So I think name recognition is only as good as for those who have voted before, those who have checked the box off before.
I'll be curious to see if any of the aspects of her record, which you sort of alluded to, will come out in the course of this campaign, because she's taken some very controversial votes and positions.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
What are some of the most controversial, you think?
She voted against the living wage for the city of Charlottesville, the only councilor to do so.
13 at that time,
and made a principled position, said it would negatively impact morale, which I still don't quite understand. And I think to go out of your way to vote against a wage increase for the lowest paid workers is not going to play well if that gets out in public. I think she personally led the charge. Dede and I worked very closely on a drug policy reform for the city of Charlottesville, which, we can't unilaterally end the war on drugs here in little old Charlottesville, but we were taking a principled stand that we want to deprioritize marijuana arrests. We want to change some other things about policing in the city that have really decimated many, particularly low-income people of color and their families in this community. And Councilor Galvin led the charge against that personally. Kind of brought up, marijuana as a gateway drug, all this old sort of reefer madness stuff, and succeeded in killing off that drug policy reform proposal. I mean, there have been others along the way. So, we should talk about, I hope we get a chance to talk about this New York Times story which came out, because both Dede and Kathy Galvin played prominent roles in that sort of bombshell of an article that came out last year about racial inequities in Charlottesville. And I don't think I mean, I don't think Kathy Galvin came across too well in that article. I mean,
well, the recent opinion piece in CVille Weekly was about the memo that is linked in that article, and I was chair of the school board at that time, so I remember it, and yeah, she's stood by this, what was, was characterized in a scathing way in the CVille Weekly, and I think, accurately. But that's really, I mean, and that's who she is.
You're talking
and
socialist dog moms. That's who she is on Twitter.
Right.
So
Molly Conger.
Yeah. She wrote an opinion piece, an op-ed piece in the CVille Weekly. Yeah, scathing is an applicable word. It's rare in the CVille Weekly that you saw something so pointed in its stance. That's the kind of stuff that you were expecting from Hawes's team, and not necessarily something that is more advertorial now. I'll get out of the way.
No, I mean, absolutely. And I mean, anybody can read it. It's in the New York Times, linked online. That was very characteristic, I think, of what we've seen. And to go back to the deprioritizing marijuana, I mean, one of the huge issues is that marijuana is used in like the stop and frisk and the, I smell marijuana. And so what we were really trying to address, not only just the whole, the consequences of marijuana arrests, which are just ridiculous, can ruin your life, just,
It's ridiculous.
But just this suspicion.
The disparity of who's getting arrested and who's not is the biggest problem for me.
Oh, and who's getting stopped?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even, if you look at some of the recent data on the police data, it's, certainly disproportionately people of color are being stopped, but more of the stops, the white folks are getting arrested, which means they're actually stopping them for a real crime as opposed to just stopping people because
racial profiling.
Racial profiling.
Yeah, let's cut to the chase.
Yeah. And so, it's on the issue of police behavior and police, stop and frisk or brutality, however you want to put it. Kathy Galvin has never, ever defended the communities of color on that. In fact, she's very, very defensive of police behavior. So.
I got a fundraising. This is from Laura Jackson about fundraising with Kathy and Sally's campaigns, and she says very similar raising in funds this quarter, without in-kinds. Right. She says Sally Hudson $20,296. Kathy Galvin, $21,860.
That included a loan to her own campaign, but yeah.
Okay, I want to get that out there. Let me throw to you and give you the forum, and then I want to get your take on what she's going to say, and then I'm going to give a take from the teachers that are watching now that have opinions that they want to relay. The New York Times ProPublica article.
Yeah. So
show's yours.
They became interested in Charlottesville civil rights and chose education because of August 12th. And they went to Ziana Bryant because she was very visible out there, and she's a Charlottesville high school student, and said, we want to do this article. And Ziana came to me and said, can I send them to you? Because I am known as I'm a data geek. And I've been on the school board, and it's just been my issue for decades now. So I said, sure, so send them along. And I do have lots and lots of information. So they came to see me, but they knew already. They came knowing so much. They're two authors, Annie Waldman and Erica Green, I think her last name is. And I didn't really need to tell them a lot. The one funny story actually about the New York Times, the interview with them, and it was only once, they sat down with me for a couple of hours, and I referred to the North Side, South Side schools, and they said, we've never heard that. And I said, well, it's the railroad tracks. And they said, you mean there's literally railroad tracks? And I showed up the map. I said, yeah, see, it's like, and they were fascinated by the other side of the tracks.
Sure. It's a reporter's dream, something like this. I mean, you can spin this as a lead to a story very easily.
They put it in the article. I thought that was, and I said, yeah. I would say it seemed odd to me because we always referred to them as North Side, South Side schools. There's 3 North Side elementary schools and 3, and they're vastly demographically different. So anyway, but so, I got blamed a lot for providing lots of information, and I tell you, I just didn't need to. I mean, they did ask me for some things, and they would come back every once in a while and say, do you have, and like, for instance, they say, do you have a copy of that audit that they found reference to? I didn't give it to them, and I rumbled around and found a digital copy of it. Actually, I had a digital CD, and I passed it along, and I said, and I have a few, I have some reaction to it if you're interested. And that's where that memo came from. I didn't say, oh, you should look at this. I said, I gave them actually several memos from people who reacted to that audit.
Your thoughts on the story, and we'll create a sizzle reel. Start with my mention the New York Times, her answer, his answer here. Your thoughts on the story in general?
Yeah, well, I think
her response too.
It was just a really kind of a brutal takedown of the status quo in Charlottesville, and when it comes to educational inequity. And so, but it was real life. I mean, this is true. It's all true. There was no, and so we've got serious challenges in our school system of kids that are sort of tracked differently from an early age and not getting the support that they need and deserve from an early age. And Zayana, I think, very eloquently talked about some of the things that she personally has experienced and witnessed in terms of kids who are able to participate in certain kind of enrichment programs, and they tend to be fairly Caucasian. So we have a problem with we don't have enough teachers of color in the schools. I mean, there's so many challenges, and I thought that article did a great job of kind of just laying it bare. Like this is a serious challenge. So in a city like Charlottesville, which we consider to be this fairly affluent, fairly prosperous, city, progressive city, we think of ourselves, and yet we've got some serious inequities. And I'm glad that article came out. It did seem to kind of generate a burst of activity, and kind of, people were really engaged for a while, but I don't know a whole lot has come out of it in terms of substantive change. And Dede, you probably are more
Can I relay a message and then get out of the way for your response here? Jerry, please don't use my name. I'm a teacher at one of those South Side schools. I teach elementary school. I have seen nothing happen since the New York Times article has come out in regards to advanced placement classes and the disparity between white and black kids in these classes. Nothing at all. Please don't use my name, Jerry.
Right, and thank you. I'd like to thank whoever wrote that. Jackson Bio is sort of my school. It was where my kids went, and which is the South Side School, and I love it. I think we have to understand that African American children, not just all children of color, but African American children, so disproportionately cannot pass the tests that really are placeholders for literacy. And we all know, everybody knows, that if you are not reading on grade level by third grade, you have little to no chance of catching up. And yet, their focus has always been high school. Once kids get to high school, they pour all of these resources just to get them to what they call walk across the stage. And we also have very good information that once our students get their high school diploma, there are many ways that they cannot advance. Even getting into Piedmont, Virginia Community College, they can't pass the test. Like, more than half of them can't pass the entrance test, which means they would have to pay for remediation classes before they even can proceed, and gives them about a 15% chance of even getting an associate's degree. I mean, we know this. Yeah. We know this, and for some reason, we spend $18,000 to $20,000 a student, and we can't teach children to read?
Yeah,
it's unforgivable.
And I know there were a good number of teachers in the system after that report came out who kind of felt like they were personally, or not them personally, but as a vocation, that they were being held accountable. And I actually don't really put the burden on individual teachers. We have some amazing teachers in our school system. They work hard every day throughout the year. That is one of the most thankless jobs in the world. And all three of my kids have come up through the Charlottesville Public Schools. We've had great teachers. But there are systemic challenges, and Mayor Walker talks about this all the time. Dede Smith has been talking about this for years. We're not providing those targeted supports that we need to be providing. You've talked a lot about the need for more tutors at an early age. I mean, it's not rocket science.
It's not rocket science.
No.
And there are proven programs, and they know that their intervention programs don't work. They don't work. It's right out there. And so actually just last school board meeting, I got up and I talked about third grade literacy. And I said, you need to assure that every child under your care, which, by the way, most of our children who are in high school, the ones at risk, are in our school system by the third grade or earlier. I mean, most of them. And I said, even if it means private one-on-one tutoring, because that is what people with economic resources do.
Sure.
They don't put their children in public intervention programs. They take them to private tutoring. And that's what we should be doing for these children so that they are reading on grade level. And I don't think it's too much to ask our school system to advance children who are on grade level 1 year each year. I mean, that's what school is.
We got, and you've touched on this. She's already given the answer here. Jerry, I'm a teacher. I enjoy the show. I'm watching now at school. I'm a teacher at Jackson Via. What has to be done to get our kids reading on grade level, as Dede has said, and what is the role of city council to get our kids reading on grade level, and what do we do about the kids that are already behind?
Right, and that's where private one-on-one tutoring, if you need to advance a child more than a grade level, and many of them do, we know what the challenges are, but we need to bring in intervention services that are proven to be effective, and quite frankly, the whole reason that I sort of harp on private one-on-one tutoring is they're businesses. If they can't succeed, they go out of business. Now, unlike our school system, which can fail over and over again, and city council keeps giving them millions more every year. It's not the teachers, and thank you, Jackson Via Teacher, my favorite school. It is too much to expect a classroom teacher to advance a child more than a grade level. It's too much, or even one that's so far behind. We need to push our resources so that we're not year after year spending intervention money that isn't working. And after third grade, I don't want to say it's all over, but it's really hard to...
I got another thing to relay. I'll throw this to you here. And first, a lot of topics, a lot of comments coming in here. Shine on Charlottesville says, guys, put this out there tonight. The 57th District Democratic Nomination Candidate Forum at Monticello High School from 7 to 8:30. We would love to have anybody in attendance. Another comment coming in from another teacher. Jerry, I'm a teacher in Charlottesville City Schools. It seems to me once our teachers get experience, they choose to then move to the county where they want to teach in Albemarle County schools instead of Charlottesville City schools. Can you bring that topic up with Dave and Dede?
Wow, that's maybe she'll answer the question. Is what are the factors? I mean, is it money? Is it actually the population of the schools? I'd love to know.
I had a very similar, not to dismiss that concern, I had a very similar discussion recently with buddy of mine who's president of the local Firefighters Association, who said the same thing about firefighters. And Charlottesville, there's so much attrition because they're leaving to go to Albemarle, Waynesboro,
it's cost of living.
Well, it's cost of living, but also the pay isn't as good as it is in some of these other localities. He said the one thing that keeps some people here is we do have a good retirement plan, and some of the benefits are good here, but pay is not great here compared to a lot of places. And I know that's true with teacher salaries as well. We've got to look across the board at salaries for public employees. I know this year City Council did give them a nice bump relative to what had been done in the past. But it's got to be a priority moving forward.
I mean, if I'm a teacher and I'm able to get a home in one of the outer counties at, say, $300K, and that home in the city of Charlottesville is $600K, I'm going to be moving to the outer counties to get a $300K that has a bigger backyard, and then finding a job in that school system that it's probably equivalent pay to the city of Charlottesville and saving the $300,000 off the top. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer to me.
Well, I mean, we've talked a lot about affordable housing on this show before, and that's a key part of it, absolutely, which is a big part of cost of living.
What do you think, Dede?
About what?
Just the topic in general. I mean, why they're moving.
Oh, why they're moving?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I would love to know. I do think we're seeing such a generational shift. And, in my generation, I think there was a lot of you raise young kids in the city and then you move out to the county, to the burbs, to the more land, more house, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm curious to see what your generation will do.
Well, I
you
think
seem to want to be here.
I think what my generation is doing, and in some ways I am not doing this, but I see my friends doing this, is they're choosing to have a live, work, play mindset where they're able to walk out of their house, ride a bike to their job, walk to their job, hang out in the area around the vicinity of their home and their job, and stop on the travel time. I chose instead, and I'll just cut to the chase, to move to Redfields from Belmont, and is because I couldn't afford a home in Belmont, and I could afford a home in Redfields, and the home in Redfields was larger than the home in Belmont, so I was comparing apples to apples, and I'm like, it makes sense for me to go here. A 378 in Redfields was like, 600 plus in Belmont, and it was half the size. Yeah. So it seemed like a no-brainer. Yeah. In retrospect, I would love to live close to here and walk to here, but where would that be?
Yeah.
I mean, North Downtown, Belmont, I mean, it's too late.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Fifeville, and I think Fifeville, I would be like, if we're trying to preserve the integrity and the character and the history and the authenticity of Fifeville and Cherry Avenue, I would be terrified of what's going to happen to Fifeville. I mean, I think Fifeville is going to be...
It's already happening,
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's we talked about gentrification before. It's a big challenge, and we want to make sure that the working class families who grew up in Charles, who have been here there for generations in some cases, can stay. And so a lot of this just comes back to supply. Do we have the supply of housing that we need to accommodate the number of people that want to move here? And when we don't, we end up with these crazy high...
We need more density.
Right. And I actually like some of the development that's occurred. Dede and I think voted separately on a couple of these, but I like some of the development that's occurred. That's a little bit more high density urban development.
Some of it's a lot more high.
Well,
density.
some of it ended up being really ugly.
Oliver Kuhners? Are we talking
the flats? We're talking the standard.
The flats. I was not for the standard, but I did vote for the flats, and because
the flats are UVA students.
Well, but again, it was high density urban living, and I'd much rather see people living higher density in an urban kind of, you said, people walking, biking, instead of going out into the suburbs and just continuing this suburban sprawl everywhere. So now the design of that did not, I was not at all happy with the way that ended up looking, but I like the basic concept.
Well, time will tell.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say at this point that one of my criticisms about the current approach to affordable housing is that we are treating everybody who needs affordable housing as one, when in fact they represent very different demographics with very different needs. And I will just go out there and say the demographic that has the most barriers and is the least likely to benefit from this affordable housing approach are African Americans, generational African Americans.
Working class,
And for a variety of reasons. One is they're competing with more recent immigrants who may be in the same economic level but don't have bad credit because they have no credit.
Yeah.
And we have so stigmatized and discriminated in all policy after policy over the decades to our Native African American population that they need help. I would like to see affordable housing money go to paying off credit.
I would like to see the affordable housing money that we're talking about not being allocated to a general slush fund and actually earmarked. Like, this is where it's going to go. Right. This is what we're going to do. This is how it's going to be allocated. This is how it's going to be played out. Instead of like, let's campaign and raise real estate taxes and lodging taxes and meals taxes and leverage this affordable housing buzzword that is like in the news and on the tips of everyone's tongues and use that to raise the meals, lodging, and real estate taxes. And then where's the money going to go? What's going to happen to the money? Is it just going to go in a slush fund? I mean, what happens to the money?
Right, and then we keep hearing,
it goes in a slush fund.
That we need to build all of this ugly development because it's tax revenue and it's going to help affordable housing. What happens to it? It's like it disappears.
Yeah, that's where I'd love to see
What are
that
your
money. Like, this is, we talked about Keith Woodard's project. Like could have been an opportunity to put money from revenue from a new development into a lockbox for housing. Like, but I agree. I think we keep saying, yeah, we got to green light all this high end stuff because it's going to help us do more for housing or other
on
needs.
the back end.
And yet we don't.
But there's no action.
Right. So the proposal that we initially sort of submitted for creation of the Charlottesville Housing Fund was exactly what you're talking about. It was a dedicated fund that had very specific objectives, and so it wasn't going to be politicized. You couldn't call it a slush fund. And
because
we
isn't
got
that what's
some of
happening
that.
now?
Well, sort of. I mean, I would have liked to see a dedicated fund that's sort of, that has a very clear revenue source. And
dedicated source.
But we'll get there someday, I hope. But in the meantime, I will say to this council's credit, this year was a record year in terms of investment in affordable housing.
It's true.
And I give a lot of credit to some of the housing advocates out there for really making the case that we need to be investing in proven programs. Now, I know when Dede was on council, she was a real champion for AHIP and for the work to help renovate existing housing stock that's been falling apart. And a lot of those are those working class, long-term residents, many African American, not exclusively, but working class residents who have a home, they're on limited means, their home's falling apart around them, and you got a group like AHIP.
It's affordable housing, and
it is.
You could build 100 units and lose 100 units easily in 1 year.
Right.
Well, my biggest problem, and we'll throw this out here, and we got to, we'll close here.
Yeah.
My biggest problem is, why can we give developers an out to build affordable housing in their developments by saying you can throw money into this fund and not have to build affordable housing on site? And then once you throw money into this slush fund, so you don't have to build the affordable housing on site, so you can preserve the price points of the other homes that are not affordable housing, so you have an easier time selling those homes or renting those homes or whatever it may be. And then that money that is not allocated to affordable housing. I have serious beef with that.
Well, that money is supposed to be advocated for.
But is it?
But and in actuality, if that program were working, that incentive were working the way that it should be working and could be working, because those dollars could actually go further in addressing the housing needs, particularly for the very low income members of our community, than simply building a few units on site for the people right at 80% of every median income.
Because it's cash in hand.
It's cash in hand, but you can then leverage that and you can target that to things like the crossings or other things where residents who can't afford a large rent payment or mortgage payment could still want and need to be able to live here in town. So the program itself, I think the idea is sound, but the application has not really lived up to.
And I just like to say if I may, just one other thing is, and again, this was my big beef on City Council, is that we have all this city money going into this fund, but it's not necessarily city residents who are getting the affordable housing. So again, you could build 1,000 units and have 1,000 people, city residents who need it, and put 1,000 people in those new units and still have 1,000 people needing, because we're not connecting those dots. And
That's my problem. Okay, I think that's a good point, and thank you. I appreciate you.
Always a pleasure.
I appreciate you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you very much.
Thanks so
You
much
rock.
for having me.
You guys rock. Guys, we will archive the entire interview on ilovecville.com. JW, if you can come in and join us and welcome them out. Michael Payne, hello. Thank you for joining us. We have 3 council candidates watching right now. The good path right there would be right here, and then JW will walk you out that front door. And then Dede, thank you. I appreciate you. I thoroughly enjoyed today's conversation. I love learning from folks that are smarter than I am, and Dave and Dede certainly are. We're such an interesting crossroads, I feel like, right now in Charlottesville because of the limited size that we have for our community. And when you're only 10.27 square miles, you have to build from what I think is up, and we need more density. And I think it's so obvious. Why don't we have more density in this community? And I think if we had more density in this community, we would solve a lot of the problems that we have and give people a lot of the things that they want, which is this live, work, play environment where they're able to stay where they work and they're able to go to the restaurants and the entertainment and the spots where they work. And Judah, you step in right there in Harris's spot. Harris, you join us on set. We're going to welcome Harris Tolbert to the show, and then Judah, we're going to flip to you in a matter of seconds. And I'm really curious of your perspective here, Judah. If we flip to you here shortly, make sure your mic is on over there, because you're renting, Judah, on pretty much the city-county line. So I feel like you can speak firsthand to what the difficulties are like as someone, and he's looking to buy the spot right now. But for a number of times you've rented there, and you understand, I feel like, the struggles. And Judah, let's flip to you of the living in an area that is so expensive. Throw the show to you, Judah.
Judah, flip up the two switch.
Yeah, I think I've got it. Definitely. I mean, it's spending 10 years in a place and realizing that that for 10 years that money could have been going towards an investment in my future. That's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and yeah, I would love to buy that place and start investing in my future.
And he's working to do that. I mean, you are like, right now, I think Harris is a young guy, like, about to be in this thick as well. I mean, like, what do you see as someone who, are you millennial?
I'm a millennial.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Millennial. How are you feeling as far as like the future for you as a millennial in the city of Charlottesville? You're a James Madison University graduate.
Yep.
You're a smart-ass dude.
Yep.
You went to Western Albemarle High School. You have a lot of talents.
Yep.
Let's cut to the chase. There are limited jobs in Charlottesville.
Absolutely.
From an advertising and digital media standpoint. Your thoughts of what you feel like the future is for you in a city like Charlottesville, first-hand perspective.
It's tough. It's tough, man. It's like I have a lot of friends that I graduated with. Most of whom are doing the same thing I am doing and I was doing. Move back home, searching for jobs. Hopefully. Some of my friends moved up to DC, but like in order to make it there, the ones that are in DC are working for like big time financial companies like Fannie Mae or like
Working in finance.
Yeah, or like
Yeah.
Deloitte.
Yeah.
Like it's like the only way to
Right.
to make it in a big city in a type of environment. And even Charlottesville is kind of the same way. Yeah.
Do you feel confident?
Uh,
Well, you should believe in me.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
believe in
absolutely.
me because I got your back here, and
Yeah,
we're gonna
appreciate
help
that.
like we're doing with Judah with him, like working to buy a spot. So believe in me, but you don't have to like just say the answer because I'm sitting next to you. Do you feel confident about your future in Charlottesville? Do you think your future is long term as a millennial in Charlottesville?
Yeah. I'm really hopeful.
Do you want it to be?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. I love this town. I've grown up here, and it's just an amazing place. I think at some point I would like to do a little bit of traveling, just because I'm a young guy in my 20s. I want to become a little bit more.
Cosmopolitan.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, as of now, I love Charlottesville. It's an amazing place.
I think that's like honestly and I am older than you. I think that's in some ways the generation gap and the difference between the wide range of millennials, and millennial is such a wide range. You looked that up the other day, Judah. Do you remember what the millennial range was off the top of your head?
I don't remember what it was. Something along the lines of, I think 76 was the end of 1976 was the end of years to be born to be in my age group.
So it's a wide range.
Yeah.
It's a wide range.
I think millennials might have been 77 through like mid 90s.
Okay, and where we're going with this is like, from me being on the front end, and he is certainly on the front end of the millennials, the early part. We always had the mindset of like, keep your head and nose to the grind, the groundstone once you got out of college, bust your tail, like do nothing besides like grind, work your tail off, try to save some money, go after the American dream, which is like potentially home ownership. And the millennials on the back end
Yep.
of the range, that is completely opposite. And I think it's because of the housing crash of 2008 that the dream of the American dream of home ownership is now no longer the dream for folks on their early and mid 20s. Like, throw that to me.
Exactly. Like I think a lot of people in my age demographic are kind of like in terms of creating income. I think they're trying to think about like doing it from not just one source. Like they're trying to, online business or like, working a job at the same time, and try to like allocate different means of having an income, rather than just like taking your degree, putting it into like one job for the most part, and then just like grinding it out and working your way up in like a company or something like that. You know what I mean? It's a little bit more diverse, I would say.
So Lauren puts on the stream, one of the producers of the show, she says, I'm showing millennials are born 1981 to 1996. You're 95.
95, yeah.
I'm 81.
Yeah.
So right there, that is a 14-year age gap. I think 14 years is a generation. Yeah. So we have a generation age gap right there. And the front end, the 81s, the 82s, the 83s, my brother's in 83, we were always told when growing up to be like I said, go to college, work 80 hours a week, work as hard as you can, save as much money as possible, put it in the bank, buy a house, and stop paying rent. And that's the American dream. And now that mindset has switched tremendously, and you embody that mindset where it's now more about like life experiences, and the opportunity cost of working 80 hours a week is 15 years of your life. And then next thing you know, you're 36, 37, me, and have taken one vacation in 11 years. And sure, you have a home and office and commercial real estate, but then you have taken one vacation in 11 years and you have regrets.
Yeah, and this is exactly what like I was talking about with some family friends the other night at our dinner conversation. It's like millennials, especially like on the back end, are like trying to allocate their their time into putting things into things that they're passionate about. It's all about passion, like over jobs that make you money and things like that. It's about
like your brother and playing music.
Playing music. My brother moved to Richmond. He's playing music, pursuing his passion.
Working in the gig economy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those musicians are not making big dollars by any means. I mean, like, if you're a musician nowadays, you're just making money on merch. That's pretty much it. And that's like enough to hopefully pay rent and buy some food and water, etc. And especially a lot of these touring bands and stuff, But yeah, nowadays it's all about experiences, passion, trying to free up, your most precious commodity, which is your time. That's like things that millennials are pouring their time into.
I'm curious of your thoughts here, Judah. Flip over to you. Jump in with some conversation. Share some perspective. This guy's highly educated. Savannah College of Art and Design. He's worked at this business for an extended period of time, 7 years in July. You got savings. You're doing well. Your thoughts on this conversation?
I think I need a little more specifics in what you're asking. I think in terms of savings, in terms of what people are looking for, I mean, I can really only speak for myself. It's tough. You're looking at all these taxes. I keep hearing people on the show talking about raising this tax and that tax and all the other taxes. And what are they going to use that for? You can't just say you're gonna raise my taxes and not tell me what you're going to do with it, because that's oftentimes the response of government is, let's raise taxes. Well, what are you going to do with it? What have you done with the money that you've been taking from us before now? Where's that money going? When the streets are messed up and we're paying taxes, we've already paid to have the streets looking good. We're also paying taxes on our vehicles. We're paying taxes for property. Where is all that going? When is enough enough? If you haven't fixed things by now, maybe you should give it to. I think Dede said something profound today, and that was when she was talking about getting private contractors into the schools, because if they fail, then they're out of a job, and you bring in somebody that can succeed in that field, in whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, and we need more of that, I think.
That was well said, Judah. Very well said. I agree with that. Why do you think you're a product of Western Albemarle High School? Why are we seeing such phenomenal test results and scores coming out of Western Albemarle High School?
So, Jerry, this is exactly something I want to talk about.
Okay.
When Dede was talking about education and how it relates to like your kind of ethnic and financial family background.
Uh-huh.
And I want to relate it to sports, okay?
Okay.
I played soccer at Western Albemarle High School. And what sports do for you is they boost your morale, boost your confidence. And, if you're successful in sports, it can translate into, like, your whole future, essentially. Like, that confidence takes you a long way. And Western Albemarle High School, when I played soccer there, we were undefeated in district play for 4 years straight. Our team was 95% Caucasian, and the relationship there is that families such as my own, moved from cities because we heard about Charlottesville, best place in America, right?
Uh-huh.
Wealthy kind of middle upper class family move into these into like Ivy, like kind of suburban, more expensive houses, can afford to send their kids, such as myself, to play for SOCA, to travel SOCA, soccer organization of Charlottesville, which is expensive, like for tournaments and
it's really expensive.
And training, thousands of dollars a year.
Yeah.
And then they move into the Western Albemarle district, because Western Albemarle High School obviously is one of the best educational high schools in Charlottesville, that's getting some of the best test scores. All of a sudden, these only the kids that could afford to be trained by SOCA and play travel all those years are like mostly kids that come from middle upper class, Caucasian families, are the only kids that can make the varsity soccer team.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we're playing schools that have teams that are much more diverse, such as Louisa,
Charlottesville High School,
Fluvanna, Charlottesville High School,
yeah.
And we're just crushing them.
Yeah.
And what does that do? The same thing that happens in education. You're just more successful. It breeds confidence.
It creates a generational problem.
It creates a generational problem.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That was well said.
Thank you.
That was very well said right there.
Mm-hmm.
I think this entire segment with the three of us should be turned into a sizzle reel.
Mm-hmm.
He is Harris Tolber, who's talking here in the blue shirt. Well, what we need to do next time is we make sure we get the lower thirds for you and Judah on the show. Guys, my name is Jerry Miller. This is the I Love CVille Show. Judah, go to a one-shot. I thought today was fantastic. Dede Smith and Dave Norris. I love learning from people like Dede Smith and Dave Norris. And I really appreciated how Dede was saying it's time to pass the torch, Jerry, to people of your generation to the rise and shine and step up to the occasion. You're good. So I want to give props to Dede Smith. I really had respect for Dede because she was to the point. She was a straight shooter. She said what was on her mind. She understood at times like what's on her mind could ruffle some people's feathers, but she understood that needed to be said. And I respect people of that mindset. I respect Dave Norris because Dave Norris is the type of guy that he is a solutions-oriented individual. Dave is the kind of guy that is literally working to the common goal of making Charlottesville a better place. And if at times he has to like take his politics and put them slightly to a side for the macro concept of Charlottesville a better place, he's willing to do that. And I respect people that are willing to put their own personal beliefs and their personal agendas and their personal egos aside for the macro concept of bettering Charlottesville in totality. And I think Dave Norris epitomizes that. This is the I Love CVille Show. My name is Jerry Miller. We are on the I Love CVille Network. Tomorrow is Friday. And tomorrow is Live Music Friday at 3 o'clock on the I Love CVille Network, which is in an hour and 4 minutes. We're going to celebrate and champion Caring for Creatures, which is Central Virginia's first no-kill animal sanctuary. I love connecting with you guys on this platform. I truly, truly love connecting with you guys. And we close the show the same way every time. Please embody the golden rule. Treat others like you want to be treated yourself, and watch how it has a viral impact across our ecosystem and makes our community better. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. We'll see you an hour and 3 minutes now with the Caring for Creatures show. Good work, gentlemen. I think we have a sizzle reel there. I think you guys...